Hello, this is James Jensen with Constitution Laws and You. Today is a new day in the broadcast of Constitution Laws and You. And those of you who are watching by view of the uh, YouTube or Facebook or whatever social media network, we want to say welcome. And this is to a radio broadcasting from Pennsylvania, the United States of America. We want to say thank you for watching, and we hope that you will share the broadcast with your friends or on your pages. Constitution laws and you, we want to look at chapter 5. Chapter 5 of the Liberian Constitution deals with the legislative branch of government. And we have been discussing the Constitution, and those of you who've been following, the Constitution is to be distributed to all Liberians and that it is to be taught in all schools within the Republic of Liberia. So, from our end at Tui Radio, we take this as a civic and a voluntary obligation so that we can explain the Constitution the best way possible. And we have a co-producer that is Councillor Arthur Tamba Johnson. He's not been with us for a few days now, I think because of some busy schedule. Howbeit, we have an obligation and we intend to complete the discussion of the Liberian Constitution. At this time, we are at chapter 5 of the Constitution, and chapter 5 deals with the legislative branch of government. So, what chapter 5 says, what is it about the legislators? As we have said before in previous broadcasts, we said chapter 5, which deals with the legislative branch of government, speak of the powers of the legislature. The legislature is considered as the first branch of government, and there's reason for that. If you look at Article 34, the entire Article 34, and you will see the numerous powers of the legislature. The legislature is supposed to create new counties, meaning they are responsible to demarcate the country into counties. From county, they are supposed to create electoral district, other district, township, and all of those things. It is left with them. Howbeit, citizens can petition the legislative branch of government if they need a particular county to be created, if they need a particular district to be created, they can petition the legislature. But it is the legislative right to demarcate the country into counties. The president himself can petition, he can request the anybody within the country. Even I will say I can petition them. And then they will look at the petition and be able to say, well, okay, yeah, we're going to divide Nima County, we're going to divide Bomi County, Lofa County, whatever they think about. So that's one of the primary powers of the legislature to create new counties. All right. The second thing we've been talking about is the security sector of the country. The legislature is responsible to create security and defense for the country. So Article 34, those of you who can read, take upon yourself to read Article 34. You will understand the numerous powers of the legislative branch of government. The spending power, we said before that the legislature is to authorize the executive branch of government to spend um, money, to spend the country money. The president has no right to spend the money without legislative directive. And the way it works is that the president proposes to the legislature, and the legislature authorizes the president or the executive branch of government to spend money. And it's not just, okay, go buy a shoe or go do this. It's about budgetary appropriation. The local line artists, okay, this year we're going to face the roads from here to Buchanan, from here to Lofa, from Morovia to this place. When they see the need, then they appropriate money. And this is where people sometimes say the government is not working in line with good governance because sometimes there is budgetary appropriation Either the executive goes there and they switch or change those appropriations, take money from here and put it to this other place and do whatever they want to do. That is not how it's supposed to work. The legislative branch of government is to always be requested to authorize the spending of the executive branch or to authorize the executive branch to spend money. Okay. Also for taxing, for taxes, the taxing power is also the power is one of the powers of the legislative branch of government. So you see, when there are need for taxes, the legislature can tax alcohol, they can tax importation of rice, they can tax rice rather, they can tax anything so far. They can tax whatever they think they can help the country to generate money. They can tax any item, any goods, so as to help them to generate good revenue. So again, that's one of the powers of the legislative branch of government. Also, the legislative branch of government has the authority to authorize the president to borrow money. The president by himself is not supposed to go to France, go to America, go to Europe, any part of the world to see they're going to borrow money. He has to seek the consent of the legislature before he does that. Or the other way around, he can go about asking his friends of countries to help to borrow the country money. But he cannot go alone and sign an agreement for a loan. Even if, because the reason is, if he does that and send and come back before asking the legislature, there will be a lot of questions. Or what if the legislative branch of government decides that, look, we do not approve any borrowing of money at this time, and the president has gone ahead and signed loan programs from other donors or from other countries. So it's always a matter of discussion between big powers within the government. All right. But the paramount thing we want to understand here is that the legislative branch of government has the power to authorize anybody, the president, to go out there. The finance minister, the finance minister works for the president, right? So the right to borrow money must come from the legislative branch of government. All right. And to regulate trade, um, the legislature also has the power to regulate trade. The president, the executive branch of government has all right to negotiate with foreign powers or foreign governments or foreign entities. You know, so with all of these things that will have to take place from the executive branch of government, the authorization must come from the judiciary. That's a cardinal point we want to emphasize here. Also, to approve international agreement, the president can go all out there, enter into major agreement to obligate the country to other nations or other institutions. But Liberia is not just the president, it's not just the legislators. So to borrow money or to enter into some agreement, international agreement, the president can do that. But if he did that, he comes back to the country and then he submits that agreement to the legislative branch of government. And then the legislators can modify, they can reject that agreement, they can approve it, they can ratify it. Ratification is the approving process of the international agreements. So these are few of the powers of the legislative branch of government, and we will keep talking more about that. All right. Under Article 4, Article 34, all deals with the powers of the legislature. You can take a time to read some of the major you know points as far as powers of the legislature is concerned. Let me talk about one important issue here, which the reason why it's good to read the Constitution because things happen every day. Now, Article 34L. Now, Article 34 has subsections from A to M. the alphabet A to M. So you see how long Article 34 is. And these are important provisions of the Constitution of Liberia. This is where legislative powers can be found. So, like for example, a very good example, you are aware that just recently, the Liberian Senate, the Judicial Committee of the Liberian Senate, carved a piece of legislation creating for themselves a pension scheme, authorizing the law to be passed so that when they leave power, the rest of their life, they want the government to be paying them. When they leave power, they want their wives to be paid for the rest of their lives. When they leave power, when they in power, their children must be paid until they reach the age of 21. But is that what the Constitution says about such a directive, such a power? Let's read Article 34L. It says the legislature shall have the power to enact laws providing pension scheme for various categories of government officials and employees in accordance with age and tenure of service. Together? So the major element in this Article 34L is that the legislature, they have the right, to create or to enact any law to create a pension scheme. But it didn't say that this provision is not just saying that, look, lawmaker, you can create a pension scheme. So for yourselves. No, the law did not say that. The law says they are to enact laws providing pension scheme for various categories of government officials. Various categories of government officials. That's element one. Various categories of government officials. That's the first thing. They're supposed to do what? They're supposed to create laws or create a piece of law that deals with pension. Pension for whom? For various categories of government officials. All right? What are some of the conditions? Government officials, no, let's understand that. Government officials and employees. So pension schemes should be created for what? Government officials and employees. In accordance to what? In accordance with age. Now, these are issues I'm emphasizing because if you read the piece of legislation, in fact, that whole law, the caption of that whole law, for me personally, is problematic. It does not conform to the Constitution of Liberia. Now this is law issue. I need not to emphasize that too much. But when laws are created, when there is law on the book, when a particular law has been amended before, that law become obsolete. Not obsolete in totality, but the provisions that are amended, they become obsolete. So when you are creating new law, you do not go back to that law or those provisions of that law because that law has been amended or the new law has been created in place of that law. So when you are creating new law, you don't go to all of these laws from 1972 or whatever. You only go back to the law that came in place of that law. So you can't go back to all of the laws that have been amended and say you're creating new law. That's one point of fundamental problem I saw with that quote unquote Senate financial independence bill that they passed a few times. Another thing is this constitution says you cannot pass a piece of law with two titles. They know that. So title, I mean, a common grammar right over there. If you say we amending this and creating this, there are two different titles right in there. You either amend or you create a law. In the same bill or whatever it is, you cannot create and amend in the same time. You can't amend a different law and create a new law. There are two different titles right in there. It depends on what you're doing. You want to amend a piece of law, you amend a piece of law. And the reason why people do is that you do your research, take all of this information from wherever you want to get them, and you carve a piece of bill. When you copy a piece of bill, you can make reference to those laws from where you got those pieces of information from. But you can, if you look at that financial independence bill that came from the Senate, they have they narrated almost all of the laws that have been dealt with before, and they say then meanwhile we're creating this. You can't do that. I mean, sorry, our BB people then. All right. But this Article 34L is calling for them to pass a piece of legislation or laws for various categories of government officials and employees. So the law they passed is only addressing, or it was only to address issues of the legislators, the president, the chief justice, associate justices, judges of the circuit courts, and then concern for their wives, their children. These were the people. It didn't say you must create a piece of legislation for your wife and children, though. It said pension for what? For government officials and employees. Your wives are not officials of government. If we want to live by the letter of this provision, the letter of the Constitution says government officials and what? Employees. If your wives are employee, that's a different category. So you don't say why, you say employee. So these are fundamental errors in the just bill. But thank God to the House. I mean, this is something I admire the House. The House, I mean, they really worked in the interest of Liberian people when it comes to this bill. And that was something very good that we want to commend members of the House of Representatives. That was awesome. That was being patriotic. That was being nationalistic. When you hear people playing with those words, that's the best time we can appreciate you for that. And for the Senate, we can say, I mean, sorry to say this, I want to shame on you guys. You know, society, to grow society is not about you. If you enter public service, you're supposed to serve the people. So this Article 34 is all about their powers. But in the meantime, Article 34L directly reference what they did in a few days. All right. So this is why when you read the Constitution, every time you can know what people are doing, whether their actions are in conformity with the Constitution. You can see that. Yet in the something you don't have to go to law school sometimes, right? But let's understand this. Lawyers are the one that's supposed to interpret the Constitution. In the meantime, the Supreme Court has the final interpretation of the law. But lawyers are trained to see what law is. All right. In the meantime, common sense can be applied to make people to understand certain things. But don't pretend now that you are a lawyer because you can read grammar and say, "Oh yeah, this is common English." We want to say that. So the more you read, something you guide yourself. You try as much as possible to do what you need to do. So that's the cardinal issue here. All right, for which we just want to have. The rest of it you can read. Those of you who are interested in this discussion. Um, so the next thing we'll talk about on Article 35, 34, 34 deals with that. Article 35, it says each bill or resolution which shall have passed of both houses of the legislature shall before it becoming law. Okay, so in short, what this provision is emphasizing, there are a few things over there. They talk about bills and resolution before they are passed. The houses, both the House of Representatives and the House of Senate, these two houses, they are called houses because they have separate chambers. All right, these two houses must agree. Like, for example, the very bill talking about the financial independence bill, the Senate passed it, all right, but the House rejected it. Because the House rejected it, so it is void. It is being killed. It can never be surfaced any longer, except somebody reframe it in some other way. But as far as lawmaking is concerned, that bill is dead. The fact that the House voted against it, they cannot take that bill and send it to the executive mansion. That bill is dead. All right. And we'll say thanks again to the House of Representatives. They did well. That's how government's supposed to work. You're not enemy, but stand up for the good of the people, the good of the nation. When you do that, people would appreciate you. Rather than if they were going to agree with the Senate, well, that would have been the worst again. But thank God to them, they never, they were really on the side of the Liberian people, the House of Representatives. We want to say thank you, bravo to all of you guys. So before the bill is passed or a resolution is considered to be law, it must pass both houses. When that is done, it is enrolled. All right, it is enrolled and sent to the office of the president. The president signs it if the president wants to. If the president feels there is a problem, for example, if the both houses would have passed this financial, you know, independence bill, whatever what is that, the title is one long stuff, but I call it financial independence for members of the legislature, their wives and children. That's how I like to put it, so that the common people can understand. The people want to pass law for themselves, their wives, and their children. You know, which is that is not leadership. Okay, so when the houses have passed a piece of legislation, a bill or resolution, bills or resolutions, meaning several bills or several resolutions, all right, is sent to the president. If the president disagrees with any provision of a particular bill that is passed, like this bill, if the two houses would have passed and sent it to the president would have said, wait a minute, are these people serious? Do they want Liberian people to be paying for the rest of their lives? So every time we get legislators coming, when they leave office, we'll be paying them. You know how many human beings will go where they'll be paying them continually? That's making the country broke. President said, no, I'm not going to sign this thing. This is not in the interest of the people. I will not sign it. Then maybe Joe Weah would have said, okay, now, look, Minister of State, send the people document back to them. Tell them I'm not signing it. He vetoed it. Bam, send it back. When the president when he vetoes a bill and send it back to the legislature, the legislators can override that veto. That's why we had a veto right up here. All right. The legislators can override the president's veto. So we have something called the legislative veto, the presidential veto, or the veto of the president. And we have few things that we said to 12 votes. So to override the veto of the president would have said, let's use the identical case. If the bill were passed by the two houses and then it went to the president and the president vetoed it on grounds that the law did not meet the best standard for the good of the people, he vetoed it. He sent it back to them. The lawmaker would have said, okay, Mr. President, it's your right to veto. Now, the Constitution says you have a right to veto, but we are here, we're going to override your veto. The two houses, separate chambers, to 10 votes of the total membership, they would have override the decision of the president. And then the law could be law. But when democracy is working good, you see the way the House behave, that's how democracy is supposed to work. Nobody should say, okay, because they say, okay, that all of our interests will pass it. I listened to some of the representatives, some of them wanted to side with the senators. The Liberian people serious, they can use the identical bill as a trump card to reject most of you people from re-election. Because this bill actually exposes your thinking, your mindset about the reason why you are a legislator. To be thinking about yourself, your wife and children, that's the bigger picture that anybody can know who a lawmaker is. So the list of those who voted for needs to be public, so Liberian people can know them. I know someone that are embarrassed right now. Oh, why did I vote for this thing? Even people from the opposition bloc, they voted for that. So CDC people now, they're making mockery out of them. The other people, the other light, that like my own friend and brother Darrell DeLong. That was the worst mistake he ever made. When you come clean, I know I'm looking for Abachi's statement when they were, when DeLong was taking the oath. I'm looking for that clip. because Abachi remanded the loan. And what is going on now is like, we all have to keep it as strict as it is. There's governance issue. All right. So this Article 35 deals with bills, resolutions, vetoes, presidential veto, legislative veto, to tell vote, to override veto, and all of those things. This is where you find them. And it's a very big discussion here. When we're talking about presidential veto, there's a lot of things that can happen in between these. But you can have that happening when you have a very good independent government, where there's a separation of powers. Like lawmakers are after their lawmaking duties. They check in on the president. Then everything the president saying, they agree with him. The president himself is curious to know what the lawmakers are saying. Not everything they was sent to him, he was just agree. Then the judiciary too sitting somewhere, just watching them. Whenever they go wrong, somebody that run to them say, no, Mr. President, you wrong, or lawmakers, you wrong. Like that, you get to realize the importance of government. Like that, the people interest will always be protected. Right. So that's the basic issue in Article 35. All right. And so remuneration for lawmaker salary. Now, this is one issue. This is on Article 36 and 36. The senators and representatives shall receive from the republic remuneration for their services to be fixed by law, provided that any increase shall become effective at the beginning of the next fiscal year. Now, the issue here is we just talk about pension, the people preparing pension for themselves, and we're talking about 50% of their salary. What is the salary of lawmakers? This law, Article 36 of the Constitution, says their salary must be fixed by law. Is there a piece of law that set the salary for lawmakers, for senators and representatives? If you don't have a piece of law set, then on what grounds are you talking about that 50% deduction for pension? Not deduction, 50% after you should have left office for pension, 50% of your salary for pension. If Liberians don't know your salary, this shouldn't be secret. There must be a piece of legislation. Suppose I send some of our correspondents in Liberia and say, go and get a piece of law that set the salary of the people. I'm going to test that. I'm going to ask some of the people I was saying Abraham over there to go and see whether they can get the law that set the salary of lawmakers. I seriously doubt it, whether there's any law. I know that there's a law that addresses that, but that law, they themselves will not even want to accept the figure in the 1972 Act. So if that law was amended, where is it? How much a senator supposed to make? How much a president supposed to make? How much the speaker supposed to make? How much the deputy speaker supposed to make? When you talk these things, people think that you just don't like people, right? But I'm very serious about it. Very, very likely, Speaker Buffer Chima does not know the salary of George Weah. When the law says they're supposed to set salaries, they are not doing it. Go on the web page of the U.S. House of Congress. Their salaries are spelled out there. Much more about a little country like Liberia. What is stopping the people from doing these things? The law says your salary must be set by law. Then all of you people are in violation of the law. You think you should be re-elected? These are some of the things. If there's a debate tomorrow, I just ask other Liberian people. Just ask a simple question. Representative X, you want to re-elect you. Did you set your salary by law as per the Constitution? All Liberians should ask them. When they say no, don't vote for them. Do not re-elect them. When they come into people, let it bring the law that says this is where their salary is being spelled out. You can hold these people accountable. It's easy to get these people behaving right. If you don't set salary by law, where are you going to take the 50% from? because you have a bulk figure, right? And then somebody will say, you know why the controller section of the house get a they get a record opinion. That's they didn't say the controller section must have a record. They say you must set your salary by law. When it's by law, it means if it's going to take $15,000 and 1 cent, that one 15,000 1 cent should be paid. If they say a salary is $12,000 annual, that's what the old law says. Most of the senators and representatives are going to take $12,000 annual. $12,000 annual, that means it's going to be what? Others will make $1,000 every month. That when you say nobody want to be representative, right? Or senator. The highest will be. People want to get into a position, they want to be there for service. You know. So that's the biggest picture of it. This discussion, this is very important. Remuneration for lawmakers, meaning their salary, must be set by law. The law must be displayed for Liberians to know how much lawmakers are making. Be honest and display that. Before you start talking about pension. This whole issue of pension, that's another five thing we're going to be discussing for the next, maybe 1 week we'll be discussing that thing. The pension scheme must be to pass a piece of law. You have the National Social Security Agency over there. They collect money from people. I have a practical experience with that particular Social Security area. When I worked for the legislature, I had an accident. Every money put the done in. How much they pay on that time? Say $450, right? But yet they still putting the cost or I got taxes from us, or I got a pension, whatever they call it. But when I had my accident and I went over there, I think the senators themselves got involved at the time. They rode there to see whether they were going to have, you know, cater to some of my bills and all of those things. Nothing, absolutely nothing. So people are just playing with the lives for the Liberian people. Set pension scheme, be honest. The scheme must set pension for government officials and what? And employees. It must be set by age and tenure. Lawmakers, you don't have tenure. Your position is not a tenure position. Your position is purely electoral thing. Election. So when you go to election, you lose election. That's not an honorary position. It doesn't say when you go to election, you lose. That means the people must be paying you. You go to election, you lose election, you are done. You are. As far as the law is concerned, no particular person is going to stay in no position. Election is for, by the time they say election, it means that you were elected for a time period. Now for tenure, your position is not, tenure can be defined, it's defined. By law, a tenure is like, for example, the Chief Justice, right? He said, why? When he reaches the age of 70, he should be retired. The law says that. The Constitution says that. So when it says that, at least talking about his benefit for retirement, all those things can be something that people can start looking at. But lawmaker, you are elected for 6 years. 6 years. And those who are there for 9 years for purposes of continuity, so 6 years for lawmakers and some senators, and 9 years for the other senators who are supposed to stay there for continuity, senior senators. So if you don't do these things right, Liberians are being educated. We are discussing this thing. People are listening. People are listening. And most of you will be surprised. People will end up denying you at the poll because of this kind of a decision you're making. So that's the bigger picture of today's discussion. That pension, the law says, Article 34L says you must pass piece of law for government officials and employees on the basis of what? Their age and their tenure. So you need to set the age. What should be the age limit for a government official to be retired? Now, that cannot be applied to senators or representatives. If you set an age limit for retirement, you don't have age limit for you being a representative. You have time frame for service. 6 years elected for service. When you are elected, you can be removed. Why you remove somebody that dishonorable dischargement, right? You dishonorably discharge somebody. So that is not the issue. The issue is when you get elected for 6 years. After the 6 year, the Liberian people think that you did anything good, they will re-elect you. So when you go to the polls and then you are defeated, you can't be telling people they will pay you. It makes no sense. Thank God to the House. I deny that. Senator Dillon, Van Sherman, all of the judicial committee, people blunder. In the House not dealing with you people. That's the right thing way to go and buy it. There's not disgrace. There's no something like just pure governance, good governance. you know. So that's the issue there. So your salary must be set, and maybe we're going to be talking about it continuously. I hope the House now will also prefer a bill that will set the salary for both senators and representatives. If you do that, we will say thank you for so much for such a decision. We hope somebody from the House will start that. So we're taking this salary. The law say we must pass law on our salary. So when you do that, we again clap for you guys. I hope this time around, the rest of the years to come, maybe next election, the rest of the months to come, we hope the House of Representatives could, do most of the honorable thing. You can make a gain, you could the lost image. You can regain that. From now the next few years, you can tell Liberian, look, we are sorry for all the things we did before this time around. Every monkey on its bottom. you know. So that's how it is. So the law, we're waiting to see the law. I will send somebody over there to go check in the archive whether there's a law there that sets salary for senators and representatives. If it is not there, we ought to use senators and representatives to do the honorable thing. That's the law that says it. It's not me. The law says your salary must be set by law. Somebody will say the budget. The budget did not set any law for you people. The budget get a buck figure there. For the speaker office, there's a buck figure given to the speaker office. That is not salary setting. That is not setting remuneration. So don't bring out other argument. That argument doesn't hold water. Let me throw it out so that somebody that was depending to say, oh, we get a budget law. No, budget is a law, but the budget is not setting your salary. You can do that too. You can put your salary in the budget, but the budget is for only 1 year, right? So if you're talking about pension, what do? Do you go to 2020 budget? You can't do that. So you see, when it says set by law, now that's something too we can define as to budget law having a last span of 1 year, and your salary being set by law. That should be for continuity until a certain lawmakers come in, or even you people. The law also provide that every year you have the right to change your salary. you know. So, but it doesn't mean that you're setting a salary now. The law is reasoning. So when you're setting your salary, you don't have the intent that every year we increase our salary. Lawmakers shouldn't be thinking that way. You sort of all of the factors and then you set your salary, particularly so at the beginning when you get elected and get to be sworn in. That's the time senators representatives are supposed to sit and set the salary. If there's a law, the other group that kind of take that piece of law. Oh, the people are taking too much salary, 15,000. We know we have to reduce it because of the economic condition. We reduce it, or we add it up. This is our time to chop, so we add some up. So whatever the case is, you should have done that from the onset of the government. Right. The important factor, the takeaway here is your salary is supposed to be set by law. So if you don't have that done, you still need to do it. All right. So Liberians, you have to hold your representatives and senators accountable if they don't have their salary set by law. Okay. Okay. Another thing we said it already. Any increase begins at start of fiscal year. So that's all about it. Okay. So legislative vacancy. That's Article 37. All right, talk about legislative vacancy. How many ways in which how vacancies exist within a house or in the legislature? How do Liberia or the government of Liberia or Liberian people have vacancy in the legislature? The Constitution Article 37 says if there's an existing lawmaker who was elected, certificated, and sworn in, and that legislator dies, vacancy can be created. So by death, vacancy can be created. The second reason would be resignation. A lawmaker can get tired with the system, or maybe because of illness or some other reason. He could say, "No, my people are giving up. I'm tired. I don't know. I need to go sit on my farm and rest myself." If the lawmaker can get farm, go and sit and maybe employ people to be working for you on your farm. So by resignation, a lawmaker resigns, vacancy could be created. Okay, or by expulsion, a lawmaker who, for whatever reason, for cause, that's the right phrase, for cause, that legislator can be expelled. All right. So that's the key issue. A lawmaker or vacancies can be created in the legislature if a lawmaker that is already elected and sworn in to serve in that position, he can be he created vacancy can be created if he or she dies. His seat can become vacant if he or she dies. Or if he or she resigns, vacancy can be created. Or if members to tell membership of the entire House of the House of Representatives or Senators, if they decide to expel one of their own, then vacancy can be created. The last one is we say for otherwise. Otherwise, a legislative vacancy can be created. All right. And I was saying the last time that vacancy, that otherwise can be defined too. And now, like if I was teaching, I would ask you, what are some of the otherwise under which condition vacancy can be created besides death, resignation, and expulsion? So the only thing that came to my mind as a person is that if a president decided to appoint, like for example, Solomon Joy wanted to become police director, or maybe defense minister, or whatever position he feel fit for, and he's a president confidant, president talk to him and say, you know what, Solomon Joy, I'm going to appoint you as the police director. If he wants to, but that's a greater risk to be elected by the people to leave that job and say you want president to appoint you to a police director position where he can work again, appoint you today, the next day he dismisses you. But that's a choice for anybody. So if that happens, the otherwise is certified under those conditions. If the president appoints any member of the legislature to serve in his cabinet, that person cannot hold onto a cabinet position and also serve as representative. He will have to resign. All right. So resignation in that case, maybe okay, that would be the case, right? The president appoints, the otherwise is certified, but how be it, that person had to officially resign the position. That also certifies on the second condition. And when there's a vacancy in the House of Representatives or Senators or Senate, there is a need for notification. You have to inform the National Election Commission. Now, okay, we have one of our colleagues, Blaman Doe, who was senator for District X, has died. So we want to inform the Election Commission, and that should happen within 30 days' time. Now, Liberians are not respected of time. You should tell somebody that within 30 days, you go beyond 30 days, that's a constitutional violation. And most of the time, people overlook these days. The date was set. Somebody want to say, okay, nothing happened. We are human beings and this and that. If we are human beings, then there's no need for law. When the law says 30 days, you do all you can to live within the 30 days. Like for example, the chief justice is supposed to resign when he's at 70, right? But people are going to be playing with that one too. When is he going to leave? When the president has appointed all of the replacees, so they will have to now also be talking. We have to take our seat and all of those stuff. So that one there, I know Kopo is going to leave. I mean, Honorable Kopo, he's a respectable chief justice. We know he's going to leave. Thank God, at least everything has been set in motion. That's what we're talking about. Discuss all those things until Kopo gets to reach the age of 70. In the real sense of the word, you should be resigning, before that particular day. Make sure you solve all your unfinished problem or those things you can't solve, the other people will solve it, and just live by the Constitution and make sure you live in the terms and conditions of the Constitution. So that's why I would say in 30 days, they need to inform the National Election Commission. But that is not in the context of that. This is for lawmakers. All right, by election, not later than 90 days. So when the National Election Commission is informed in 30-day period, after that 30-day period ends, within that 30-day period, they could inform the National Election Commission in 1 week, 2 week, 3 week time. Anytime they inform, they say within 30 days. So if somebody died, somebody resigned, somebody got expelled, or somebody got appointed to different position in different branch of government, they can inform the National Election Commission in the time frame of 30 days. They can do it on the first day or second day or any time, but they say well on the in 30 days. When that is done, in 90 days there must be election. The National Election Commission must conduct an election. So that's 37, right? And and on 38, Article 38, and let me make sure, yeah. Article 38 says each house shall adopt its own rules of procedures enforced other than with the concurrence of two-thirds of the entire membership. Now, this is a cardinal issue too, expulsion of a legislator. The lawmaker can make a decision to expel anybody on the end of their own for cause. The Constitution for cause. Even that cause can be is defined, but we don't have all of the time here now to be defining all of that for cause. Cause is not just because somebody causing somebody and getting say, well, the person not going to expel this person. And there are some general guidelines. When somebody speaks in the chambers of the legislature, both the House and Senate, out of the House, that person is not supposed to be expelled. You can't punish a person for that. So these are other rules. So for expulsion, there must be some real serious matter. Let's say, for example, I remember Roland Kine. Roland Kine had a situation with I think people on his farm for some other reason. I think there was an allegation that I don't know that he did order some of his workers, or when they kill some people, they hang some baby rock on some people and they throw them in the water. That kind of cruelty. And I think Senator Kine suffered because of that. you know. So with these kind of situations, these are serious issues. It's not just about okay, people forcing all around. Okay, you must leave a section. You get up from here. You this and that. You see, you must expect people. Lawmaking is a place where people very almost like throw blow every time. People in disagreement. People have to argue because that's it. You don't just argue for argument's sake. Your argument be substantive to get the meat, the crux of the issue. So in the face of that, people disagree. At the end of the day, they become quiet and then they take a vote. But when something went, maybe in that person, somebody get ready, maybe somebody, God forbid, who's not happy with somebody maybe carry a gun in the chamber, open fire, or somebody took something, knock somebody with a God forbid somebody drops, and that person, you know, can come back to life. Those are serious issues. Even though the Constitution say in the chamber you can't do this, but when you have actions, being carried out and someone got injured very seriously, there are constitutional provision that addresses these other issues. So you go to the other provision that will overcome the action of the senator or representative, and then you prepare your impeachment bill or your expulsion bill, and then maybe you write the person a letter. Procedurally, do all you can so that the person cannot challenge you. The person could be wrong, but if you are procedurally wrong, that person cannot be expelled. You know. So the first thing is you write the person, you tell the person, look, you know what? These are your charges. You are done A, B, C, D. We want you to meet before the judicial committee to answer to why you should not be expelled. Now the person refuses, maybe the communication person refuses, then of course you take some other action. You can expel the person, suspend the person, whatever you want to do. But if the person even go towards to appear before the person when they appear before the judicial committee, then the person is given due process. So you see what they had to tell entire membership, to tell of the total membership of the House or Senate can expel the person. Not simple majority. Simple majority is just about one half of the membership, half of people. Now simple majority in of those present in the chambers, it's just for some simple resolution, right? Simple resolution. Not joint resolution either, simple resolution. There may be something concerning themselves. Under the condition, you can have some issues discussed and voted under the condition. But for expulsion, it must be to tell vote of the entire membership. Okay, and there must be for cause. For cause can be defined. What are maybe the rules define that? The Senate or the House rule, the House's rule. They have defined what a cause means. What cause can we expel somebody? If your rules, if the rules of the Senate or the House did not spell out what the cost can be for someone to be expelled, you can't just get in and do anything. You are lawmakers, so you have to make sure these conditions are clearly spelled out. The rules of the Senate, now these are things, due process, all of those things are found in Article 38. And Article 39 talk about census. The legislature shall cause census. You make sure that a census every 10 years. Now, this is something also. Lawmakers sit in there. I don't know when Liberia had her last census. When the Constitution says you must do this in 1 day time, a law-abiding person is supposed to make sure that I think that the framers mandated must be done in the daytime, that it is done in the daytime. It's the same, you must have census within 10 years. After every 10 years, you must make sure that you provide the money. If it means you're going to sacrifice your cut some of your money and send it for the purposes of census, you do it. That's what they call respecters of the law, right? So the legislator, this is one of their power. They are the ones supposed to authorize census, the entity responsible to conduct census, right? So legislators are the ones who are supposed to authorize census. I think the few times there have been some communication, right, in the same direction. How it is going to be done, we don't know how long has it taken. Now, when people are in violation, when census is supposed to take place in 10 years or after every 10 years, and there is no census, who is to be held accountable? Who should be blamed? Should we blame the legislators or we blame the president? Or we blame the appointee, the appointing power? You can't blame the appointing power, the appointee. You can't blame the appointee. You have to blame the president and the legislators because they are the one who's supposed to authorize. That's particularly so the legislative branch of government. The law says they are the one who's supposed to cause census. So without census, you don't want to know the population of the country. And there are many other things you don't know. How many children are born every year or in every 10 years? What is the population of Liberia right now? No lawmaker can say it. Hmm? How many women uh, were born within the last 10 years? How many men were born in the last 10 years? You can't know this thing without census being conducted. How many educated persons do we have in Liberia? How many? I don't know whether those things can be part of the census, right? But it's supposed to be to know the level of education of Liberians, the percentage of Liberians that are educated. So I don't know the census. What are some of the questions I've now had an opportunity to conduct a census, but I know it's a generalized question. People do the demographic, and people do after the census is conducted and make a lot of analysis of the result. And from the result, people can make a determination. People can even begin to say, okay, the population is focusing in Nima County. And because of the population in Nima, we have to divide Nima into 2 or 3 counties. Or because of the population in Lofa, we have to divide, or the land mass of Lofa is big, but the population is not centered there, or the land mass of Bond County is big, but you don't have much human beings in there. So from census, a lot of things can be done, can be taken care of. But for census, nobody cares. We just predict Liberia is about 5 million persons when we don't know. All right. So that's how far we come with our constitution laws and you today, and um, we hope that we will keep discussing these matters. If you have any question, just post the questions. You want to discuss some of the provisions? Maybe you think you have a better idea than some of us. We also will welcome you to come onto the radio. We are here every constitution laws, and you is here every Tuesdays or every Wednesdays and Fridays. So you want to discuss the issues? We're talking about the thing that is affecting people in our country. If you have interest, you have best of mind, we welcome you here anytime. Having said those one, we want to come to close to today's edition of Constitution Laws and You. Let me see. I know it's late in Liberia. Many persons are sleeping right now, right? But we were late, and so we thought it wise to do this one so that we can catch up with our schedule. Having said that, thank you so much for watching. And till next time, this is Constitution Laws and You and to a radio. We are broadcasting from the United States. We want to say thanks to each and every one of you, especially our correspondents who are in Liberia, who are extremely doing well. We want to say bravo to all of you guys. Let's keep pressurizing ourselves. We'll get there. Okay? So having said that, bye for now, right?